all begin? Well, I'll tell you where it all began. In the 70s. Because in the 70s, I questioned this tosh on our screen at school. I can even remember the over-enthusiastic teacher nodding, getting all hyperactive. Yeah, there's people upside down on this ball. I remember looking at her thinking, you're mad. Because I didn't go along with this spherical pantomime, I questioned it, and I wasn't happy with the explanations, or certainly the answers I was given. I ended up getting in trouble. In one of the classes, I touched on this before, one of the classes I used to have to hold books from everyone in the class, stand in a corner holding these books. Really gave me a very good, strong physical base. As you can imagine, I only tolerated this for a short period of time. I don't know if I had a bad night's sleep, or just wasn't in the mood to entertain this power trip. And as a result, the books were launched straight at the teacher. As enough was enough. And as you can imagine, it wasn't very well appreciated by the school, and I moved on. At this very same point in time, give or take a few years, I'm questioning this spherical pantomime on our screen. I then come across the very first ever flat earther I've ever met. And it was my mother. Very talented artist, very talented musician, could speak at least four different languages fluently. Was an incredibly savvy, wise, funny lady. She told me that this on our screen was absolutely ridiculous and would roar with laughter when discussing this and space. Strange all these years later that I'm a space basher, but I'm sure my mum would be laughing at that. But this wise, savvy woman kind of kept it simple with regards to what we call the flat earth. Would simply discuss perspective, but at the time I didn't quite grasp what she meant by that. And of course the properties of water, its behaviour, that was the basis. She kept it simple, although there were some little subtle seeds planted over the years that didn't get watered for many, many years, but were planted in deep and kept there. And then of course when I came across this subject again all these years later, I poured plenty of water on them to unearth those little nuggets my mother had left within me. So if you're a parent, take note. If you've got young children, just simply point out the obvious truths. Simple little truths. Planting obvious seeds. Even if the kids don't grasp it then, there'll be a point in time where they need to water those seeds because they've come across the simplistic truth. And the great thing is, they'll more than likely remember it. It's powerful stuff. I'm still having little nuggets from the past now rise up. Of course, by putting my attention to it, I'm watering it. So it's very important to plant seeds, the right seeds, I should say. But going back to the 70s, with my mother discussing the shape of the earth, and of course me instinctively as a kid questioning it, there was still a mechanism that held me back from grabbing or grasping the simple truth. And it was the straw man presented by the school of water going off an edge with a boat going off it. Everyone roared, ha 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 ha, isn't the flat earth silly? No one had the discernment, or no one spoke up, myself included, to hang on a minute. We know by the behaviour of water that it needs to be contained. So this is a silly representation, but this also highlights the absurdity of the globe. Of course no one did. Everyone went and towed the line, even though I questioned the globe. And even though I had my mother highlighting the absurdity of the globe and space, I was held back by this tiny little thing. This straw man, this misrepresentation of the simple truth. That shows you how powerful a straw man can be. And that's why when we go to Google and we type in flat earth, we get nothing but misrepresentations, straw man maps. Bear with me. That's why when we come here, you get nothing but absurdities. Things that no one on this earth would even dream of standing by. And of course, Globies lap this up and put this on their videos. Many of them are tattooed tosh like this to me. And you all know, most of the people that visit this channel know that my claims are simply demonstrable reality. You want a map or a model, full exploration, based off of the fact the globe's scientifically impossible. You can have a more scientific or honest approach than that. Simple. But this is why these misrepresentations, of course, boosted by the algorithms, are so important. They're mechanisms for holding you back from seeing the simple truth. Globe believers, like I said, you need to use this all the time to justify their own fucking delusions, which is very sad, lads. And the moment anyone attaches something like this to me, you instantly are irrelevant to me. Instantly. You become a liar, a misrepresenter, and you become irrelevant as a result. And there's many that have done that. Hundreds. Because they have to. Because if they have to address the things that are the flat earth, which is simply the things that are, they'd have to address the things within them, i.e. the ego and the inner pantomime that starts to do the performance that we know as cognitive dissonance. So that's the importance of these straw man, these misrepresentations. And like I said, it just took one of these to hold me back from grasping the simple truth, which I obviously already knew at school. I think most of us looking back can remember thinking this globe's tosh, doesn't make any sense, has no science. But eventually I sort of went along with it, just because I couldn't be bothered with the hassle. But it's very interesting, isn't it, to see the job that these straw men can do if they can get their hook in you. I always found old maps fascinating, almost like forms of art. And I could lose hours looking at old maps. I had no interest in old globes. And I found the old ancient Hebrew concept of the earth fascinating. And I can remember looking at this for hours at school in a book. The textbook it was presented and shown to us, along with that straw man waterfall earth, which of course had to be there as a defense mechanism. But I found this concept fascinating. And of course, it's more demonstrable than the globe anyway. And I need to state this. I am not making any claims regarding this model, okay? I'm just stating, as a kid, I found it fascinating. It interests me and made far more sense looking at it than any ball with people upside down on it, which is ridiculous. Old maps I loved. I found this fascinating. And of course, the defense mechanism that was the straw man just held me back from grasping the simple things that are. Take note of how this system works and the psychology. Bearing in mind, I was questioning the globe. Bearing in mind, I had my mother telling me simplistic truths. But somehow, this straw man just held me back. That's all it was. And of course, it's a misrepresentation of what is anyway. When you see it, it becomes quite a simple thing to break down and see it for its raw toxicity and deceit. I'm talking about the education system, the mainstream beliefs and narratives. It's ridiculous. It relies on things like this, misrepresentations, to hold people back because they struggle to deal with the inner battle, because no one wants to feel the resistance and be out of their comfort zone. rather than have to address emotions and feelings that have been suppressed and blacked out by fulfilling materialistic desires, they'd rather kick back. They'd rather than address that and empower themselves. People would rather kick back, order pizza, and get the old Netflix on or whatever it is people are watching these days. I don't watch mainstream tosh. Now this is probably the most simple way I can put this. Without discomfort, there is no growth. And that is what holds so many back. As I've stated, they don't want to come out of their comfort zone. And as a result, there's not going to be any growth or any empowerment whatsoever. Because they're marinating in their comfort zone, the only growth tends to be at the waistline. Sad, but true. And of course, the misrepresentations, like the flat earth, the false maps and models, are of course mechanisms that people have to address when they look at this subject. They're too lazy to scratch beneath the surface. But when this subject came back around in 2014, I had to not only investigate this subject, but I also had to come right out of my comfort zone by entertaining all the pantomime of the past, the books, the teachers, they're being punished for asking and questioning this. Even those historical things that happened to me were now like blockades to stop me from seeing the truth, because my ego was attached in a defense mechanism that didn't want to be right all those years and got punished. So as a result, I went through a right old pantomime when I started looking at this subject. Of course, like everyone, I had to wade through all the misrepresentations, all the bullshit, come across a lot of very seedy, dodgy characters online. But ultimately, once I waded through all the crap, I simply stood by what is, the simple, demonstrable truth. And off that, I was able to discern. And from that, I got it. It doesn't mean I had one hell of a journey investigating it emotionally. I can remember my girlfriend looking at me in a very, very concerned manner as she'd seen me going through this investigation that went on for a few months, to be fair. Desperately trying to find globe proof, even though I knew in my heart it was horseshit and have done all my life. Again, take note how the psychology of the misrepresentation, the straw man works, and again, the psychology of being punished for questioning this. Those historical events then became hindrances that I had to address emotionally to overcome and see the simple truth. Please take note of those things. So much of this is psychological. You make it easy for yourself by standing by what is. Don't let your ego get too involved in this stuff. Just be humble, honest, truthful, and stand by what is. No one can refute you. No one can gaslight you. They can only stand by you. If they choose to deny what is, then they're a reality denier. And that's fine. You can live in your own fantasy bubble, whatever. Before I go, I just want to big up my girlfriend. Obviously, she saw me go through that investigational turmoil, pantomime, whatever you want to call it. And when I told her, obviously then came to, I knew anyway, but when I actually vocalized it, you know, the earth is not what we've been told. After looking into it for about 20 minutes, like an absolute pro, just rolling with it, she looked at me and went, yeah, the globe's ridiculous. And I want you to bear in mind, she had an Earthrise picture in the kitchen. Took it down, put it away. No stress. An absolute pro. Incredible how she dealt with that. Just like sweeping a little bit of dust off the shoulder. Because she wasn't ruled by the ego. She's a wise woman, don't get me wrong. Calm, savvy, and not ruled by the emotions. And as a result of that, saw it. straight away. Once it got her attention, yeah, the globe's obviously ridiculous. In fact, it's insane. Let's take that silly Earthrise picture down. That obviously is fake. So, my girlfriend, my darling, you know who you are. I love you loads. Massive respect to you for putting up with what you've had to put up with. Obviously, it's not easy running a YouTube channel like I do, going up against the grain. You've been an absolute rock, an absolute star. And you're an old school wise woman just like my mother, and I'm proud of both of you. Love you both, although my mother's sadly no longer here. I'm sure she'd be laughing at the state of play at the moment, this silly pantomime, and the fact the globe is crushing and the globe never was, but the fact now the globe has been crushed pretty much from the imagination of a large part of this earth. It's only brainwashed individuals who are held back by the psychological tactics that are employed. Of course, I've highlighted how they work and how weak really they are when we've looked at them. But like my girlfriend and my mother have shown to me, be honest and humble and true, and you'll grasp the things that are. It's very simple. Massive respect to those guys, and massive respect to you. Anyone now who speaks up, highlights the simple truth, takes the time to write words on a screen and engage with on-task individuals, reality deniers, and takes the time to write stuff out and correct their error of the ways, or back and forth with the many on-task individuals that we all know. Massive respect to all of you guys. We've done it. The globe never was. But when we stood by the simplistic truth, every single person on this earth got the same results as us. And as a result, the globe was crushed from the imagination of anyone foolish enough to believe it in the first place. It's scientifically impossible. Only psychological methods hold you back. You've got nothing to lose from that, because by addressing those things, and they're not that difficult really once you get stuck in. One was a little bit more juicy than perhaps most because of the history. But again, nothing but power to be had from addressing, stepping out of my comfort zone and addressing things inside here from the past, shadows, whatever you want to call them, ghosts of the past, whatever. By addressing those, facing them head on, nothing but power to be had. I don't mean power of the ego, I mean power of the self, being a better human being, being a better discerning individual. I think I've gone on enough.